Good evening, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for coming back. I have several news updates to share for May 23rd, 2023. I will start with a short video from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed advising Ethiopian citizens to cooperate, to use their talent, creativity, uh, imagination to advance the country's industry, the country's agriculture, and other sectors, and to make Ethiopia a better country in the future. It's a nice speech. It's an Amharic, uh, very encouraging, expected from leaders, you know, uh, giving advice, encouraging citizens to use their creativity, to use their talent, to cooperate with each other, and creating a better country for future. So it's very interesting advice. He advised Ethiopians also not to focus on negativity. So how you gonna forget? How you gonna talk about positivity? Just he advised Ethiopians to focus on positivity, to use their talent, to use their creative ability, uh, to unite their forces to change the country's, agriculture, industry, and other sectors, which is good. But uh, we need to see why the country is in such bad shape under his leadership before talking about, before you focus on creativity or using your talent. The environment must be examined to, to cooperate. So that's the challenge. But he's just telling us to focus on positivity, to cooperate, and to use our talent and creativity. But we need to see what are the root causes of this less development in that country. Why agriculture is not developing? Why the industry is still backward? So that must be examined, and the prime minister is, uh, ignoring the realities the countries are facing. The countries in a very bad shape, conflict everywhere, and war is waging in Oromia region now, according to the current information. There is war boiling between Tigray and Amara forces too, according to the claim by Voice of Amara. TDF reinforced its forces and engage to retake Wolkite Agade. So that is another worrying factor. Plus the chaos in Amara region, the division in Amara region. Those who are supporting Abiy Ahmed agenda, those against Abiy Ahmed, but they are supporting the public at large in Amara region. The public at large are against Prosperity Party, against Abiy Ahmed agenda, and against the disarmament of Fano and the Amara militias. So there is a chaos over there in Amara region, and there is a very serious division. Those high level like Tamasgen Turuna and Agenyo Tashagar, those senior Prosperity Party officials are wanted to stick to Prime Minister agenda, Prosperity Party. But those regional leaders, including Dr. Ilikal Kafalo, the regional president. They are against the Prosperity Party. They want to solve the region's problem. So it's a very, very tough division, very chaotic situation. It looks like it's a war still underway between the federal government and FANO and Amara militia, who are refused to disarm. Also, according to the Voice of Amara, the regional president, uh, submitted the letter of resignation. So nothing said from the federal level on this issue, but that is the claim made by Voice of Amara about this one and about the war TPLF is waging against Wolkite and the Tagade. So there's the chaos, and the Oromia region is also still in a very tough situation. So the Prime Minister message is good, but the Prime Minister is not trustworthy by Ethiopians, and he is not capable of solving the country's problem. He talk nice. He made several golden speeches, but in reality, he is not solving the country's chaos, the country's problem, and that is a challenge. But let's listen. But the reality is, the message is this. In short, but it's in Amharic. Let's listen to that one and proceed with other news.
የእጅ ጥበብ ያላቸው እጃቸውን ልባቸውን አእምሯቸውን በአስተሳሰብ የሚሰሩ ሰዎች ያስፈልጉናል። ግብርናችን አልዘመነም፣ ኢንዱስትሪው አልዘመነም፣ ኮንስትራክሽን አልዘመነም። በተባበረ በተደመረ በተሳሰረ ችግርን ብቻ በሚያወራ ሳይሆን መፍትሄ በሚያመጣ ሀሳቤ በመፍጠር ግብርናችንን በመፍጠር ኢንዱስትሪያችን እንድናዘምን አደራላችሁ ፈልጋለሁ። እንበርታ፣ እንፍጠር። ፈተናን ችግርን ለማለፍ መፍትሄ ላይ የምናተኩር እንሆን። በዚህ መንገድ የበለጸገች የተሻለች ሀገር ለመፍጠር ሁላችንም በየሙያችንና ብቃታችን የምንረባረብ እንድንሆን አደራ ላለሁ።
GoDaddy is a partner that always puts you first. Start today at GoDaddy.com.
Okay, so
After several years of
we'll come back to the other videos I selected for today. So that is the message from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed advising citizens to use their talent, to use to coordinate hand, mind, vision, everything to make agriculture, industry, construction, and other sectors to develop, and instead of focusing on negativity, just focus on positive vision. So that is his advice. But as I said, he got so many golden speeches since he came to power in 2018. But in reality, is a failed leadership in that country. But so many signs of dictatorship in that country. He's controlling the police. He's controlling the federal army. He got so many undercover operatives. He is using the country's limited resource to crash down the voice of freedom and creating injustice. For example, so many Oromo political prisoners freed by court system, but he's holding them against the constitution. So that's a sign of dictatorship, and he's shutting down the media, and also recently he shut down the voice of the church, Ethiopian Orthodox Church media. So he's not credible in leadership, but he got so many nice speech, golden speeches, but speech only cannot bring change, and he has to tackle the country's reality, the country's real difficulties, high unemployment, inflation, injustice in that country, instability. So many other problems. There is no future. There is no future for younger generation and for current generation in that country under his leadership. He has been exhibited so many failures. So, but the advice, this short advice, is expected from leaders, but he is not credible. Let's continue. Thank you again. This one and another one from Addis Standard. This one talks about caucus of opposition parties say government-funded paper on constitutional reform highly disturbing, leads country into more chaos. This is his style of leadership, giving agenda for Ethiopians, giving a distraction, from people cannot talk about high inflation. People are challenged. They cannot afford to buy a bread. So, and the ongoing war in Oromia, ongoing war in Amara, and so many other challenges. So he give you a distraction. Then citizens will start talking about constitution and the challenges to the constitution. That is a style of leadership, providing agenda for distraction. So this is not a good time to talk about constitution. It's obvious our country is facing so many challenges. Let's read. A group of 10 opposition political parties known as Caucus of Opposition Parties, COP, issued anonymous statement denouncing a recent study by a government-funded policy think tank, Policy Studies Institute, PSI, floating the idea on the need for constitutional reform. Titled FDRE Constitution After 3 Decades, inquiring into whether and what to amend, the study paper was presented for a discussion in the capital Addis Ababa among a select group of people. Calling the president highly disturbing, COP said the said research is methodologically flawed, wish list of certain quarters, and above all, an untimely initiative. It also labeled as unfortunate that such lopsided paper is presented to the public at this critical juncture of our country's history, where the bloodiest war just ended and we are still in the midst of war in much of Oromia. The study, which majority focused on selected provision of the constitution related to group rights, came under criticism from various constitutional scholars and has since been a topic of online debates, both among activists and media personalities. Of the topic of constitutional provisions, the study also included a topic related to ethnic-based political parties and said overwhelmingly respondents of the study rejected the formation of ethnic-based political parties. In its statement sent to Addis Standard, the COP, which among other parties has its major opposition parties in Oromia and the Somali regions, including Oromo Federalist Congress, Oromo Liberation Front, and the Ogaden National Liberation Front, respectively, further said that such papers are not only misleading but can also lead our country into more chaos, as there is very little consensus regarding constitutional reform both among the country's political forces and the diverse Ethiopian communities. It should not be forgotten that it is "I can do it alone" that has led the country into the endless crisis for decades, in which millions lost their lives and millions more have displaced, the caucus said. The caucus also questioned the methodology used in the study, which asserted that 75% of 1,123 survey respondents believed that the current constitution of Ethiopia should be changed. It is highly disturbing that the so-called research has been conducted with little regard for scientific objectivity, and as can be read from the methodology used as well as our own observation, it is tailored to serve a hidden political interest of certain circles, and that contains highly deceptive findings. Here, it is important to note that politicizing scientific research for narrow political interest and personal gains can easily jeopardize the foundation of our already precarious stability and the hopes for democratic transition, the COP said. As opposed to pushing the agenda of a constitutional reform, the COP urged all the concerned parties that under the existing Ethiopian situation, genuine national dialogue and a broad-based agreement to be reached among the country's political forces on the way the future Ethiopian government is structured, as well the political system is organized. The caucus also requested the ruling party and its government structures to ensure the right to self-determination of the nations, nationalities, and the peoples of Ethiopia as per the provision in the existing constitution when treating the demands of the various peoples of the country, such as the Walaitas' quest for referendum to save the people from unnecessary conflict and bloodshed. Credit, as I said, at this standard. So that is rejecting the agenda given by Prosperity Party or Professor Beyene Petros, who is under the salaried of the government. So this one is again from Addis Standard, the Ethiopian government shutting down temporarily at least the Mahabara Quddusan is a voice of the church. Mahabara Quddusan, a religious association affiliated with the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, EOTS, responded to a decision by Ethiopian Media Authority, EMA, to temporarily suspend its TV channel, Mahabara Quddusan TV, saying it disagreed with the decision and appealed for the suspension to be lifted. The media authority issued a letter on Sunday, 21st May, announcing the temporary ban imposed on Mahabara Quddusan TV on grounds that the station aired content that may provoke conflict among religious followers and incite the Holy Synod's meeting, which was concluded yesterday. In its response, Mahabara Quddusan expressed its belief that, contrary to the authorities' assertion for suspending the TV channel, the content aired during the program in question would not incite conflict among the members of the church, as it entertains a statement that was issued by a committee established by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church Permanent Synod and garnered support from various recognized associations within the church. Furthermore, the association provided detailed justifications to demonstrate that the content of the suspended program was in accordance with the media decree and therefore didn't breach any regulations. Mahabara Kurdisan also laminated the decision for it is the lack of due process in accordance with Ethiopia's media law, such as prior notification regarding complaint or an opportunity to the TV channel to provide an explanation before the decision was hastily taken. The association called for transparency and due process and urged the media authority to adhere to the established administrative measures outlined in the media law. It has therefore appealed for the temporary suspension to be lifted. So that is Abiy Ahmed cannot tolerate any criticism, any comment against prosperity or against prosperity agenda. Okay, this one is from BBC, a couple of them from BBC. Tigray protesters call for the return of those who fled war. Thousands of people in Ethiopia's Tigray region have staged protests calling for residents who fled during the recent two-year war to be allowed to return. A peace deal in November ended the fighting between pro-government forces and the Tigrayan fighters, but a long-standing land dispute between Tigray and Amara, which was exacerbated by the conflict, was not resolved. Tigrayans say the presence of Amara officials is preventing them from returning to their homes. At protest in the cities of Mekelle, Adigrat, and Shire, they also called for the delivery of humanitarian aid and the withdrawal of Amara forces and Eritrean troops. They are still there, Eritrean troops, because of the silence of Abiy Ahmed. He's failed the country, as I said, he's a failed leadership. As soon as this peace deal signed, the government should announce Eritreans to leave, but they are still there. Last week, the leader of the regional government in Tigray said Eritrean soldiers were still present. The BBC cannot verify their presence. This is again from BBC. Senegal opposition leader boycotts rape trial again. The trial of Senegalese opposition leader on charges of rape has resumed, but Ousmane Sonko failed to appear in court for a second time. Security forces patrolled the streets of the capital Dakar, fearing trouble from his supporters. Mr. Sonko is very popular among young people. The 48-year-old politician says the trial, which started last week, is politically motivated and aimed at stopping him running for the presidency next year. He denied sexually assaulting a woman who worked in a massage parlor, as well as making death threats against her. The former tax inspector is believed to be in the southern city of Ziguinchor, where he is a mayor, according to the AFP news agency. Protesters there have been barricading the road to his house to stop his potential arrest. So this accusing opposition political parties with rape is a common practice, mostly everywhere, really. That's an easy accusation. So they now, the government try to put this guy in jail by creating this rape case so that he will not win election in 2024. Easy, just rape. This is Israeli warning to Iran. I got this news from Middle East Monitor. This is another boiling point between Israel and Iran. Top Israeli general says action is on horizon over Iran nuclear work. The top Israeli general raised the prospect of action against Iran on Tuesday, even as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's national security advisor played down any immediate threats posed by a new underground nuclear facility being dug by Tehran, Reuters reports. World powers' efforts to negotiate new curbs to Iranian uranium enrichment and other projects with bomb-making potential have been fruitless so far, fanning long-brooded threats by Israel to resort to force if it deems diplomacy a dead end. Iran has advanced with uranium enrichment further than ever before. There are negative developments on the horizon that could bring about military action, Lieutenant General Herzi Halvey, chief of Israel Army Forces, said in a speech. He didn't detail what those developments might be, nor what action might be taken and by whom. In quotation, we have capabilities and others also have capabilities, Halevi told the Herzliya Conference, an international security forum, in apparent allusion to Israel's US ally. Experts are divided over whether the Israeli military has the clout to deal lasting damage to Iranian nuclear facilities that are distant, dispersed, and defended. Iran denies seeking the bomb and has vowed devastating reprisal for any attack. There has been speculation Israel might use countries on Iran's border as a springboard for strikes. One such country, Azerbaijan, dismissed that idea despite its strong Israeli ties. In quotation, we refrain from interfering in the disputes or problems of other countries, including by allowing or giving our territory for some operations or adventures, Deputy Azari Foreign Minister Fariz Rizayev said at the conference. The Associated Press on Monday reported Iran was building a new underground site in Zagros Mountains to replace an exposed uranium centrifuge manufacturing center at nearby Natanz that was struck by an explosion and a fire in July 2020. In quotation, this of course limits the capacity to carry out an attack relative to above ground facilities, which is of course easier. But what can be said about this matter is that there is nowhere that cannot be reached. Israeli National Security Advisor Zachi Hanegi told the conference. Apologies for some names hard to pronounce. Following the 2020 incident, Iran announced in 2021 that was working to move some of its centrifuge manufacturing halls into the heart of the mountain near Natanz, an area where Iranian engineers have long carried out excavation work. Hanegbi declined to threaten an explicit Israeli attack and even suggested the onus would be on the United States by noting that it has massive GBU-43-B bombs which are not in Israeli arsenal. In any event, Hanegbi added, this underground facility near Natanz is years away from being completed. So, though Washington prefers to pursue diplomacy with Iran, the allies see eye to eye and have no significant difference on potential red lines for last resort military action, he said. Read it again. Middle East Monitor. This is from White House concerning AI, artificial intelligence. This is a challenge to the modern day humanity. I have also a video on this one. Today, the Biden-Harris administration is announcing new efforts that will advance the research, development, and the development of responsible artificial intelligence, or AI, that protects individuals' rights and the safety and the deliveries results for the American people. AI, or artificial intelligence, is one of the most powerful technologies of our time with broad applications. President Biden has been clear that in order to seize the opportunities AI presents, we must first manage its risks. To the end, the administration has taken significant action to promote responsible AI innovation that places people, communities, and the public good at the center and manage risks to individuals and our society, security, and economy. This includes the landmark blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights and related executive actions, the AI Risk Management Framework, a roadmap for standing up a national AI research resources, active work to address the national security concerns raised by AI, as well as an investment and actions announced earlier this month. Last week, the administration also convened representatives from leading AI companies for a briefing from experts across the national security community on cyber threats to AI systems and best practices to secure high value network and information. So the White House has or prepared a plan to deal with the risks, to avoid risks associated with AI or artificial intelligence. This is a challenge for modern day humanity. This is from State Department, Anthony J. Blinken, Secretary of State. It says the United States announced $245 million in humanitarian assistance to Sudan and neighboring countries. Last week, the United States announced 245 million in additional support to the people of Sudan and the neighboring countries experiencing the impact of the ongoing humanitarian crisis. These funds include nearly $143 million from the Department of State's Bureau for Population, Refugee, and Migration, and $103 million in additional humanitarian assistance from the U.S. Agency for International Development's Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance. With this funding, our humanitarian partners can respond to the new needs arising from the current conflict, which has displaced approximately 840,000 people within the country and forced another 250,000 to flee since April 15. This announcement brings total U.S. humanitarian assistance for Sudan and the neighboring Chad, Egypt, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic to nearly 880 million in fiscal year 2023. The United States is by far the largest single donor to humanitarian needs in the Horn of Africa, and we will continue to work with international and local partners to provide food, water, medical care, and other life-saving assistance for internally displaced persons, refugees, and others in dire need due to conflict. So we should appreciate the United States for supporting individuals impacted by war in Sudan, and why Ethiopia is not getting some of this money. Ethiopia is also receiving some refugees fled from this conflict area. I don't know why excluded from this benefit. They mentioned Egypt, they mentioned South Sudan, they mentioned Chad, but I don't know the reason, but that is, we still appreciate the United States for supporting this catastrophe created by the two military leaders. And, the good thing is they signed a ceasefire, is holding, and it might ignite again, and I hope they will permanently solve the Sudan crisis. Okay, so that's all I have on a reading, and I will share some videos I selected from different media. Okay, here are the videos I selected for today's presentation. The first one is about Africa's largest oil refinery factory in Nigeria. It might help for other African countries, not only for Nigeria. Let's listen.
Of delays, Africa's largest oil refinery was commissioned Monday by the outgoing Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. Built by Africa's richest person, Aliko Dangote in Lagos, the refinery should begin operations in June, with the first product expected in August. The company is expected to process over 650,000 barrels a day.
Once our plant is fully commissioned and it is on stream, we expect that at least 40% of the capacity will be available for export, and this will result in significant foreign exchange into the country.
For decades, Africa's most populous nation and one of the continent's largest crude producers has depended on fuel imports to meet local demands because of underperforming state-run refineries. Its launch is now deemed as a game changer for the entire African continent.
This clearly makes this event a notable milestone for our economy and a game changer for the downstream petroleum products market. not only in Nigeria, but the entire African continent.
The project was estimated to cost $9 billion, but some $18.5 billion has been spent to complete it. Analysts, however, have noted that Dangote refinery will not make the price of petroleum product cheaper, but could present an opportunity for the government to remove costly subsidies and address revenue shortages.
Fujikura's new Ventus TR, built on revolutionary VeloCore technology and engineered with new ultra-strong carbon fabric.
In this Beijing showroom, AI products made by one of China's largest technology firms are proudly on display, including this image generator. Just input instructions in Chinese and it can create almost anything, provided the keywords don't contravene any censorship laws.
Baidu has invested and worked on AI for more than 10 years and were the first company to start artificial intelligence research and development in China.
This week, the search engine company says its generative AI chatbot, its answer to ChatGPT, is ready for its full launch, pending government approval. Regulating AI is a priority for Beijing. New laws came into effect in January, banning the use of AI to create and share false information. And per draft regulations released in April, companies will need to ensure the output of AI systems reflect socialist values and do not undermine state power or encourage violence or discrimination.
China is quite ahead in terms of regulation, and it's actually proposing some of the strongest possible regulation that we've heard from any possible country.
This week, as G7 leaders met in Japan, they agreed AI development should be in line with their shared democratic values. Experts say governments are grappling with the challenge of regulating a space developing at such a rapid pace.
In terms of which countries are leading the way, well, it's very clear that Europe, and in some respects just behind China, are certainly leading the way. That other countries like the United States are only just beginning to address the concerns, the potential harms that have come from these technologies.
There's great interest in AI products from Chinese consumers. Thousands came to this commercial exhibition to see a range of products. For most, trying out such technology is still a novelty. Almost 500 exhibitors are here at this artificial intelligence conference in Tianjin, showcasing some of their developments in generative AI, virtual reality, robotics, and more. This robot, trained in classical Chinese calligraphy, was a particular hit. But experts say interactions in the future likely won't be so fleeting as AI becomes more integrated into daily life. Jessica Washington, Al Jazeera, Tianjin, China.
The conditions were optimum as the countdown proceeded.
This is the last one
Dragon
for today.
SpaceX, go for launch. Two separate mission controls, one for Axiom and the other for the SpaceX team.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff, Falcon 9. Going.
Then the Falcon 9 rocket eased off the launch platform and the journey began. The crew includes veteran NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson as commander and 3 private customers paying an estimated $55 million each. Businessman John Schaffner and 2 Saudi nationals who are graduates of Saudi Arabia's first astronaut program.
We are really thrilled and excited for our mission and to represent Saudi Arabia on this journey. I'm really looking forward to all the experiments we're going to be conducting on board the International Space Station.
Biomedical researcher Rayana Banawi will be responsible for many of these experiments. And before the launch, she expressed her pride at becoming the first Saudi woman in space.
I have worked for the past 10 years as a researcher, so research has been my passion in life. I have worked on stem cells and tissue re-engineering, and I'm very happy and honored to be here today representing the government of Saudi Arabia and the Saudi Space Commission as the first Saudi women astronaut going to the International Space Station.
The two will join a United Arab Emirates national who's already on the space station, Sultan Al Nayadi, tweeting out this view of Saudi Arabia, welcoming his colleagues and celebrating the first ever time that 3 Arab astronauts will be in space together.
The plus 30 seconds.
AX-2 is the first commercial spaceflight mission to include both private astronauts and those representing foreign governments, a perfect fusion of corporate, individual, and national interests. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Okay. Good luck to astronauts on their mission. So let me conclude today's broadcast by saying appreciate the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's speech for Ethiopian citizens, but when citizens are faced with drought, starvation, inflation, conflict, hate among each other, lack of opportunity, I don't think his advice will work. He advised them to unite, to be cooperative, to use their talent, skills, and to change the country's agriculture, construction, industry, which is a good advice, but the country's citizens are, have been under so many challenges. So Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, I want you to go back to your 2018 speech, all the visions you presented to Ethiopians and to the global community. Revisit that speech. Go back to that promises, respecting democracy, respecting freedom of speech, freedom of journalists, freedom of union, freedom of citizens, all the speech, all the promises you made. If you do that, and if you respect the constitution and the rights of individuals, you are holding citizens against the constitution in your prison, and you are using a torture chamber in the military camp, according to the information on social media. It looks like a military training camp, but he is using a torture chamber, very secured, hidden from the public, from local and international community. So stop all this, stop using the country's limited resources, stop using undercover operatives in Addis Ababa or elsewhere to kidnap citizens. Stop all this nonsense. Solve the country's chaos, crisis, stabilize the country. Then your advice will be meaningful. If if you solve all these serious matters, just giving golden speech will not solve the country's problem. Stop the war, stop the conflict in Oromia, in Amara region, and the one boiling between Tigray and Amara. So if you solve this, your advice will be meaningful. You are giving a hope for the future, and be ready. Be ready to leave the power. Why you are so greedy when the people are suffering just for your power? Single person. So you are not that kind of person when you appeared in 2018, where this all nonsense came from. Why? All the promises broken. So that's all I'm gonna say for today. I will be back with other news update. Thank you for joining me. Be safe. So long, everyone.